And welcome back to Reunited States, the podcast where we bring civil discussion back into our national discourse. And from Manchester, New Hampshire, my name is Jesse Saywell.
And from Los Angeles, California, my name is Tyler Eric.
And how you feeling, Tyler?
Overwhelmed would be an understatement, considering the flurry of things that happened in the last now 3 days. As of the day we are recording this, I knew Trump talked a big game about wanting to do all kinds of nonsense his day one, all his executive orders. But I'll admit, I didn't think he was actually going to do all of this crap on actual day one.
Yeah, color me unsurprised, but also, at this point, I have just become so incredibly cynical about how things are going to go, because the optimism has faded with time. Much like my hair is beginning to fade, the optimism is fading faster. My cold heart that used to be so warm, full of youthful optimism, has now moved into this kind of dark, cynical place. And sadly...
Dude, that's just being 30. Come on.
That is accurate. But no, I wasn't especially surprised by most of it. Honestly, you have to hand it to him. The man knows how to put on a show. Why have Democrats not learned the lessons of, make it into a presentation? Day one, Biden should have been doing a big thing at the desk where he's signing stuff, and we're telling everybody what it is that he's signing, and this is how I'm delivering for you. Granted, most of the stuff that Trump signed was absolutely awful, but I will say, there was very little that he signed that he didn't say he was going to sign. This is what people voted for. Whether they like it or not, this is what they voted for. And so we have to come to terms with the fact that so many of these issues and so many of the things that he talked about in his inaugural address, which, wow, talk about dark and cynical. But so many of the things that he talked about are the things that people genuinely said they wanted. At a certain point in time, Democrats have to stop saying, okay, we're smarter than you actually want this, and meet people where they are. And clearly, a lot of these things are things that people care about. It's the stuff that people don't care about that I think is what they should be honing in on, like the January 6th pardons.
I mean, it was one of his biggest campaign promises. Trump has, in fact, pardoned the near 1,500 people, criminals, mind you, who were convicted of crimes relating to the January 6th insurrection, including the dude who was sitting in Nancy Pelosi's desk, including the QAnon shaman and all the other guys that you saw taking up quite a lot of media space a number of years ago.
And also, we have to say, including people who violently assaulted law enforcement officers, some of which died. And this is why, this is one of the things that he's doing right off the bat that is not popular. This is something that Democrats should not let go of, him pardoning these January 6th people. And
there is pushback on both sides.
As there should
Let's
be.
be real. Lisa Murkowski came up right away saying that this was an infringement on the justice system, that it bastardizes, what we stand for in terms of law and order and all these things.
Yeah. It's 70% of Americans, roughly 7 out of 10 Americans think that this is bad. And Trump's going to do it anyway. And do I think he'll pay much of a political price for it? Probably not, because, he hasn't paid much of a political price for anything that he's done over the last decade. But it is something that I do think Democrats need to hone in on, the fact that this man pardoned people who beat police. People who repeatedly bear-sprayed police. He did not just pardon, the people who were just there. That was his whole thing. It's a case-by-case basis. No, he didn't. He did not do case-by-case.
It was a blanket pardon.
A blanket pardon for people... And in fairness, there were some people, I still think they deserved to be prosecuted, deserved everything they got, but there were some people who were just dumb, who were clearly there and just yep, we're going into the Capitol, we're marching in, yeah, we got it, yeah, what do we do? Again, they deserve to be prosecuted, they deserve to be...
Yeah, but a follower doesn't get to avoid prosecution because he was following somebody else,
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm just saying there is a distinction between that person, whom I think a fair number of Americans could have said, all right, fine, let them out with a slap on the wrist, they've been through it, whatever, move on. I personally think they should, see the full extent of the law. But to pardon those people and then also pardon the people who beat police officers, who, rammed through things, who broke windows, who defecated in the halls, but really the assaulting of law enforcement officers is just disgraceful. And, they had, one of the officers who has been kind of the face of the officers since that period of time, all of a sudden he came on the news afterwards and just said, I feel less safe because people who have threatened my family, people who have threatened me in the aftermath of this, are now on the streets. And they are, immune from prosecution for the actions they did, including the person that beat me senselessly and repeatedly sprayed me with bear spray. This is shameful.
Let's be clear. These people are not just on the streets now. They're angry on the streets.
Yeah.
Because think about the way that Trump had twisted the narrative around the January 6 arrests and prosecutions. He didn't say, oh, these are people who were arrested. Oh, these are people who were convicted of crimes. No. They were political prisoners. These were hostages. These are, language he used while he was signing the bill.
Oh, yes.
Not 2 days ago. These are hostages, political prisoners, and I am rescuing them. I am rescuing them because the only crime they committed was being a champion of truth or whatever the fuck. These people will now take that language and use it to justify further action. That's the fear, and that's the very real fear of what could happen next.
That's a fantastic point. What is to stop people from doing this again? Like honestly, at this point in time, what is to stop some of these people from doing it again? It's really sad. This is the part that we agree on, and I think most people agree on. The January 6th pardons is disgraceful. It is a very, very sour ending to one of the worst moments in American history. This is basically the end of January 6th. It has played out. January 6th played out. And the voters decided that what he did on January 6th in sending that mob to the Capitol was not enough to prevent him from returning to the White House again. And we need to understand that. We may not agree. I certainly don't agree. But we have to accept that that was the case. And you can't keep harping on January 6th if you are the Democrats for the next 4 years.
No, you should be concerned because now Trump has a quite literal army.
Yes. Yeah.
He is amassing an army.
Yep.
And you can take that as literally or figuratively as you would like, but the truth is, he is amassing angry, violent followers, proven violent followers. January Sixers, the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, the list goes on. These are violent groups that have now been vindicated, rescued by their glorious leader. That's the thing. It's they're obviously going to be even more committed to him now.
Yes.
He is saying, I am doing right by you. Now continue to do right by me.
He said, I am your retribution. That was what he said at CPAC, a year and a half ago. He said, I am your retribution. And that is how he views himself. And anyone that watched that very, very aggressive speech he made, his inaugural address, I should say, it was scary. It was, and you should be scared. You should be scared, but you should not be surprised. This has been his MO, and this is what we're going to deal with. And I felt so bad for Biden and Kamala to have to sit up there front and center as he skewered them. I mean, talk about a lack of class. He spent this entire half-hour speech skewering them, just totally shit-talking the previous administration, and the crowd loved it. They loved it, because that's what they want. That's what the far right particularly wants, is just to dunk on liberals. I've said it before. When they won in 2016, that was a high that they have never been able to get enough of. It was a feeling that they got of vindication, of shunning the people who they felt like, with some degree of fairness, had shunned them. And they will never, ever get enough of that. They are craving that level of vitriol towards who they view as their enemies. That was a sad thing that happened. We got a whole bunch of executive orders here that we should probably talk about. The U.S. has pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement.
They have, yeah, and WHO, which that second one was the surprise to me. Paris, that's just a rehash of 2016. WHO did surprise me. The U.S. is one of the largest funders of the World Health Organization. If I remember correctly, their funding is almost a fifth of the entire budget for the WHO. And this is an organization that works tirelessly to assist in medical concerns globally. And now with this one act, a fifth of their budget has been sliced out completely with the US pulling out. This is a pretty big deal when you consider about the actual physical health of the world. Because the WHO has been instrumental in helping us develop vaccines for every major illness that's come out in generations now. Instrumental in keeping the human race alive. This is dangerous. I mean, this is quite literally dangerous for the world. This is not even Americans.
It's lunacy, and you know why he did it. He did it because he didn't like the way that he felt like he was treated. I was treated very badly by the WHO. I mean, because he felt like they undermined his, quite frankly, bullshit that he spewed during COVID. And he's still mad about that. And so this is, all that was is retribution. And so, that was surprising. I will say that was the one thing that he did that he had not really talked about before, but who would have seen that one coming? Should have. If you really think about it, we should have.
It makes sense. It's the kind of thing where, yeah, it makes sense that he would do that, but I don't remember him talking about it.
No.
So it's kind of a weird thing. Yeah. Along similar lines of things he has alluded to, birthright citizenship ended.
Yeah.
With a flick of his pen. This is the most glaring offense to the Constitution of the United States that he has done. Period.
Yes, and I'm not sure it's going to stand.
I hope not.
I'm very skeptical that this one's going to stand. I actually do have some optimism that the Supreme Court, which I don't trust on very much, but the idea that he, with an executive order, can undo an amendment to the Constitution, if the Supreme Court, this is the big test, if the Supreme Court sides with Trump, if they bow with Trump on this issue, then he can do anything. He is a king. He is a king. He could undo, with the executive action, the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. He could undo the amendment that gave women the right to vote. He could undo any number of amendments. Now, I'm not saying he's going to. Don't freak out. This is not me trying to sound the alarm. I'm saying that that's the precedent that this would be setting, is that the president can undo anything.
See, here's the thing, is that in order for this to stand, there has to be some legal way of defending it, right? The Supreme Court, as much as they are in Trump's pocket right now, and it's a very scary thing, they do still have to mount a legal defense of the action, right? When you think of when Roe v. Wade was overturned, that was awful, terrible. They didn't think that would actually stand, and it stood. But the thing is, the reason it was able to stand was because there was, even if it was a bullshit one, there was still a legal defense to that argument, which is something that's still required. So there are certain things, certain amendments that I think there is just no way that that's legally defensible, which I'm relying on right now when you talk about the 13th and others. But yes. This one's nebulous. That nebulousness is scary. It's scary for many Americans. I mean, citizenship being stripped away from Americans is a completely unprecedented thing to happen in our history.
It's insane. I feel very confident about this one. I will ease people, and if I'm wrong, I'll eat shit on this, and that's fine. And we can sound the alarms together. But I don't see this 14th Amendment nonsense being anything other than, which I'm going to talk about later on in my things we can all agree on, a smokescreen. This is just Trump throwing up something that will get us talking about it, that could never possibly actually be enacted. It will be struck down. And he's throwing it up to give cover from the fact that he pardoned a bunch of people who beat cops. And he is pulling us out of the WHO.
Or removing the Biden policy allowing ICE to make further arrests in sensitive areas such as churches, schools, and hospitals. And he did this. To tie this into another executive order, he just did this on the same day. A much less talked about thing that people are concerned about, but an equally dangerous thing for immigrants. Mm-hmm. With this executive order that will not be challenged, ICE can go into a school and just take kids right out of class.
Yes. It's heinous. And again, you make a great point. That is another thing that would be politically unpopular. But Trump is going to throw out this crazy 14th Amendment thing because his base will be like, yeah, well, he tried, they did great. And the rest of us will lose our minds talking about it, and then it'll never happen. So that there will be no backlash to it, really, because it'll never actually happen. And he will have dominated the narrative with this bullshit. Meanwhile, he's doing actually really atrociously horrible things. Moving on to the next one, the federal government will now only recognize 2 biological genders on federal documents.
Ooh.
You all have heard me kind of criticize the way that progressives have kind of engaged about gender over the last 4-6 years. Not because I oppose the rights of LGBTQ plus people, of transgender people, of non-binary people, but because of the way that it's been framed. This is the result of that in a lot of ways. There is a large portion of the population that I think if you had said this a few years ago, oddly enough, there would have been like a portion of the population, even on conservative circles, that's like, do we really need to have this? Like this seems kind of mean. But because of this kind of hawkish mentality about you must agree with me immediately or you are transphobic, I do feel like it turned the narrative around and it opened the door for Republicans to be especially mean in the way that they approach the issue of gender. And the reality is, no matter what they do, no matter how they frame it in the federal government and what they recognize, transgender people are real, they exist, non-binary people are real, they exist, and they will continue to exist. And we have to do everything we can to continue to protect those people because they are under assault. But we also have to be strategic about how we do that. And we can no longer just sit there and claim moral high ground over people. Because this is the result of that. If you lose elections over the way that you engage over an issue, now people are actually going to be hurt by this. And that's the part that frustrates me the most, is that the way we engaged about it, the way we talked about it, has opened a door for people to be mean. And now we've got meanness infecting our government. There's a reason why he didn't do this 8 years ago when he took office. He's doing it now. In response to things that he views as, things that many people in this country view as wrong or offensive to the way things were. I don't agree with those people at all. But the way we engage and how we move forward on these issues, we have to be very strategic about how we move forward. And that's a complicated issue. But God, this gross. It's like, it's the same thing we talked about a few episodes ago about Nancy Mace in South Carolina making the congressional bathrooms only available for 2 genders, and now Representative Sarah McBride can't use a woman's bathroom. What a ridiculous, absurd, kind of mean streak that we have in the Republican Party right now relating to these issues.
Relating to that, when you talk about protections of our diverse staff, especially as it pertains to the federal government, but something that he did say he would do, he has ordered all federal DEI staff for the federal government placed on immediate leave So they're gone. DEI is no more. This is particularly dangerous, in my opinion, when it comes to protections for diversity in hiring in our government, because the DEI thing has been a huge like boogeyman for the Republicans. It's been a big talking point, how scary it is. White people have less power or whatever else crap they want to like attribute to DEI programs, when the reality is anything but. The reality is these programs were the only things preventing further discrimination, hiring discrimination on people of color, people of non-heteronormative sexuality, people of non-binary genders. Like, this is not about taking power away. This is about equity. This is about equality. And these programs, much like the EEOC itself, was designed to ensure that these people have an equal playing field when it comes to being hired within the federal government, within government agencies across the country.
Yeah.
The fact that it's been placed as this antagonist of the Republican Party should be clear to you in what their intentions are, what they feel is the actual danger to America. All this does is allow for these individuals, members of marginalized communities, all it does is allow them to be oppressed further within the realm of employment.
Yeah, you said that very well. It's frustrating because I think what the right did very effectively was take something that we all hate, which is trainings. Like if you're at work, no one likes the sensitivity trainings. No one likes the sexual harassment training. I'm not saying that they're not valid, for the record. Don't come at me about this, or that they're not necessary. But the way that they were framed and the way that they were forced upon people, I'm not sure that those things helped as much as they hurt. In a lot of ways, sometimes they created some bitterness, some anger, and talking about these issues in the way that we talked about them and have talked about them over the last couple of years is sometimes counterproductive. And it sometimes feels like we're talking down to people. Like the powers that be are talking down to you. And as such, I think the right did a very good job of weaponizing that. And unfortunately, that has resulted in a lot of people associating DEI with that. They associate it with that, and because you do that, all of a sudden you say, that person's only being hired because they're black. That person's only being hired because they're a woman. They're a minority candidate, and I am not able to get ahead anymore. And that's the seed.
Yeah, that turns into, because I am white, I am being withheld from promotions.
Yes.
Because I am white, I am treated as a third-class citizen.
Yes. And look, affirmative action worked for a very long time because we didn't talk about it. Like, it was debated, but affirmative action just existed. It was not out there. You didn't show up and have a training on affirmative action. Like that wasn't a thing. And that's why it was effective, and that's why it managed. Now, granted, were there people who people looked at and they were like, oh, they only got the job because they were black? Of course. That is, unfortunately, a thing. But the minute that you brought it into the workplace every day, where it was a forced discussion upon your workplace, that discussion was inevitably going to get out of hand in a lot of workplaces. And unfortunately, the result of that is a lot of people being very angry about DEI, a lot of people who obviously, were already upset about the changes that are taking place in America as it becomes a more diverse democracy, or at least we hope it remains a democracy. People got very upset about that, and there was a backlash. The problem is, you didn't just lose the far-right people on it. You lost people in the middle. And this is, again, what we just keep going back to, is like, no one is the far-right people were going to be upset about this. They were going to be angry. But when you forced a whole bunch of people to sit through and be told, essentially, how not to be racist, And you say that, oh, well, everyone is inherently racist all the time. And I'm not even saying that that's false. I believe that. But when you talk about it constantly and you lecture people on it, the people in the middle who might have otherwise been on your side are like, fuck these people. Like, yeah, man, I get tired of these fucking trainings. They're awful. They're just the worst. And you lost a lot of people in the middle over that. And we pushed them further away, unintentionally, but we pushed them further away. And this is what I mean when you have to start meeting people where they are, rather than focusing on these identity issues and letting those conversations dominate the workforce. They didn't need to be at the center of how we discuss things. And companies did this as well. Companies coming out, like, I remember Delta said, oh, well, we're going to make sure that we have 50% of our pilots are females by 2028. Don't announce it. Just fucking do it. Just do it. Don't announce it and expect a pat on the back. Because all that does is people then say to every female that gets hired as a pilot, oh, she only got hired because she's a female. And that's where the identity thing is frustrating. Just do the change. Make the change, but you don't have to ask for applause for it. Anyway, that's my spiel, sorry. We have to talk as well about this Trump announcing that the $500 billion investment from the private industry AI giants, that's OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank, for AI infrastructure in the U.S., because there is a notable person who has gone out publicly and trashed this. A certain person who has an office in the White House, the shadow president, Mr. Elon Musk, Trump's best buddy, his first friend, as we might say, has gone out and trashed this. Tyler, thoughts on this? I mean, we're like 2 days into the administration, and Trump is already getting undermined by Musk.
Listen, I have my problems with AI and AI things. Not to sound so boomery, but AI and I don't exactly get along. So when I hear of a $500 billion investment for AI infrastructure in the United States, I think of $500 billion wasted. But I digress on that. I think it's funny that Musk goes against this, and at first I didn't know why. I was like, that's very strange. You would think that he would be all about money spent on AI tech nonsense because he's in that industry. But when I looked into it, turns out him and OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman have a history of butting heads, and the more you look at it, you're like, oh yes, Musk and Altman do not get along. Musk sued him because of a breach of contract of some sort between his company and Musk's own AI company, XAI, which then when you see that, you realize, I see, this is about control over AI. This is clearly about control over the proprietary technology that's going to be controlling what is likely to be the next big technology boom that the world's going to see. And Musk does not want those keys to be in the hands of his competitor, Sam Altman. That's what I think this whole back and forth is about. It's Musk saying, oh, he doesn't actually have the money. This is BS. Oh, so who has the money? You?
And before you think this is just some sort of minor spat here, this is so Musk comes out and says this stuff about, oh, they don't have the money. It's very obvious they don't have the money. And Altman goes on X and replies directly to Musk and says, wrong, as you surely know. Want to come visit the first site already underway? This is great for the country. I realize what is great for the country isn't always what's optimal for your companies, but in your new role, I hope you'll mostly put America in parentheses first, end quote. Wow. This is a developing story, folks. When you put this many egos together, and on the topic of Musk, Musk has already run Vivek Ramaswamy out of the administration.
Apparently, nobody wanted him there, according to some sources.
Well, right. They were supposed to be the co-directors of Doge, and as I've said before, I got the chance to see Vivek up close and personal.
Oh, baby.
When he, oh God, when he did a debate with Ro Khanna, and I was terrified. He's off the wall crazy, but now
he's off to run for governor.
He's off to run for governor of Ohio. So, I mean, based on how Ohio has been trending, I suspect he will have a strong chance of being elected governor of Ohio. Good luck with that, bro. But yeah, I mean, Musk has already clashed with him and ushered him out of the administration, and now you've got Musk clashing with the OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and bashing Trump's. I mean, this is Trump's priority. Trump was standing there as they were announcing that today, and then Musk went out and trashed it like an hour later, probably from the White House for all we know. So
probably from Trump's bedroom for all we know.
But to be continued here, because you put that many egos in one place, and they all think they're the smartest person on the planet, and then you've got Trump. And Trump clearly, has an ego the size of Trump's ego.
Well, the scary thing is Trump isn't as smart as his ego, but Musk is quite smart, and that is a more dangerous combination.
Well, Musk is quite smart, but apparently not smart enough to know what Sieg Heil is. Of course, because of course he would never do that. Never do that, though. Yeah, I'm sure.
And he would never do it twice either.
Yeah,
one after another.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very good friend who loves Tesla. And has made a lot of money off of Musk and does not like him personally, but for years has made relative excuses about him. And he sent me a message after this one, and he said, well, I guess my dream of having a Cybertruck has ended. He's like, I can't do it. And this is a person of color, good friend of mine, who does not like Trump, does not like Musk, but this was a bridge too far. The Sieg Heil thing is, I mean, it was so blatant. And for you people who are like, no, he was talking about going to Mars.
Going to Mars?
Well,
what the fuck?
That's what they say. They're saying that, it was this sign about him going to Mars because he wants to go to Mars. Okay, guys, look at how the white supremacist groups responded to it, because they were elated. And Senator Chris Murphy in the Senate read off several of their responses the other day. For any of you who are like, it had nothing, no one could possibly believe that. Well, the white supremacists believed that it was a sign. So there's that.
I don't see how that is defensible.
Yeah, what a sad turn of events anyway. Things we can all agree on. So let's be honest, folks. Donald Trump is back in the White House, and we need to have a little strategy meeting. Because if there's one thing we can all agree on, it's this. Democrats need to pick their battles. I get it. Every time Trump tweets, it feels like an emergency. Every time he says something ridiculous, whether it's renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, which he just did, or the Trump Ocean, for all I fucking care, or trying to buy Greenland again, our first instinct is to clutch at our pearls and scream into the void. But here's the thing. That's exactly what he wants. The man is the king of the smokescreen. He's playing 4D chess while we're over here freaking out about what color tie he's wearing. Look, behind the curtain, some actual important stuff is happening, and we're too busy hyperventilating over whether he put ketchup on his steak again. Here's what we have to do. We have to focus. Find the policies that actually affect people's lives and target those. And you have to find the ones that are politically unpopular for him, because those are the ones that he tries to sneak through while you're debating whatever crazy tweet he posted or covfefe. So you can't spend the next 4 years, and I say this as somebody who also did this. You can't spend the next 4 years having a meltdown every time he says something bizarre, because let's be honest, that's his entire brand. They don't care. It's like getting mad at the ocean for being wet. If we go nuclear over every little thing, we have nothing left when it actually matters. It's like using all your ammo in a video game on the tutorial boss. And you're standing there with a stick when the real fight starts. So Democrats, please, I beg you, pick your moments. If he wakes up one day and announces he's building a golf course on the moon, maybe, just maybe, we don't need to start a congressional hearing. Some things you just gotta laugh off and move on. Save your energy for the important stuff like healthcare, climate change, and making sure we don't accidentally end up in World War III. Now, that's not to say we ignore everything. You know, if he tries to replace the national anthem with the YMCA or declare his birthday a national holiday, yeah, we might need to say something. But if he wants to build a giant gold statue of himself in front of the White House, let him. At this point, the tourists are already expecting it, and also, it'd make a nice place for some homeless people to defecate. So think of it this way. You're in a relationship with someone who loves to push your buttons. If you react to everything, it's exhausting. But if you roll your eyes at the dumb stuff and call them out when it really counts, that's how you win. So let's all take a deep breath. Stay focused. Remember, not every tweet deserves a response, but every policy deserves our attention. What do you got for us, Tyler?
Well, it's not a golf course on the moon, I'll tell you that much.
Man, look, that a golf course on the moon is the only way that he could actually make the scores that he says he scores on the golf course, by the way. This man lies. There are literally books.
It's the drive. Mulligan!
Yeah, exactly. Well, he hits it and he goes, it's a hole-in-one. Look, there it is. It landed in the crater.
It'll be a hole-in-one when it eventually comes down.
When it comes down, it'll be a hole-in-one. It'll land in the crater. It'll be beautiful. Anyway.
Oh, man. Love that. So I'm going a different route. But my things we can all agree on is that we desperately need an overhaul on the system known as BMI, or Body Mass Index, in the American healthcare system. Now, this may be something that everybody already knows, I'm sure. But hey, that's why we call this segment Things We Can All Agree On, right? Now listen to me. BMI is a lie. Okay? It doesn't accurately reflect an actual healthy body weight and fails to consider genetic and gender differences that determine an actual healthy body. That's the truth of it. Without getting much into this, and I'm sure people listening to this probably know this to some degree, I'm sure. But BMI was determined using the average expected body fat percentage of the average adult white male, like a long time ago. Okay? Keywords being white and male. And they used that. No considerations were ever made at the time for non-white, non-male human beings. And yet, to date, this same BMI standard is held to all people, including non-white, non-male human beings, many of which cannot meet the healthy BMI levels without seriously endangering their body if they were to take that word as gospel and that index as gospel. And listen, if you're listening, you're like, well, wow, I actually know a lot about that. Let us know, and I'll gladly give an informative history expose on how BMI came to be on a future episode. I'd be more than happy to talk about that. But I digress. BMI is usually determined through a combination of your height, weight, gender, age, hip circumference, and neck circumference, right? Now, here's the thing. I am a 5'8" Latino, 171 pounds. I've got an above average neck and hip circumference purely because of my genetics, as I'm sure many, many Americans do. I can't change the width of my pelvis nor the width of my neck to a certain extent. And listen, I work out hard. I work out really well 3+ times a week. I regularly run 10+ miles at a time. I'm in admittedly very good shape, but I am proud of it. Yet, what does my BMI tell me? Overweight. Last year, and a handful of more pounds ago, I was bordering on obese, according to the BMI and to my doctor. Most of you, I'm sure, don't know what I look like, but if you did, you'd laugh if someone called me obese, even when I was at 180. But this isn't about me. This is about what this determination does for someone's psyche. I've got decent self-image. I've got decent self-confidence on my image. Far from great, but good enough, I would say. But, I, as millions of Americans do, struggle with some body image issues, and that's partly why I push myself so hard to exercise so intently. And after hearing that after all that hard work, I'm still labeled as overweight, and I'm called overweight to my face, this can be the most soul-crushing thing a person can hear. It certainly was for me. And if it hurts me this much, someone who will admit to having decent self-image, imagine what that does to somebody who has sincerely poor actual body image issues. Millions of Americans, millions of people in the world. When we talk about the millions of people who struggle with issues like bulimia, anorexia, overeating, etc., the lie that is BMI can be a major factor in preventing them from getting better. And oftentimes it can be a cause. So I'll end with this. Next time your doctor tries to tell you that your BMI is unhealthy, and this statement doesn't quite coincide with your actual body image, and especially if you are a woman or a person of color, though of course this very much can affect white males as well, challenge them on it. Ask them why. Some doctors, especially younger ones, some are hip with that, with the knowledge that BMI is a very dated and inaccurate representation of health, and can help explain that discrepancy and why the health industry still uses it. But some just follow the status quo, and those are the doctors that should be challenged on this.
Well said. Well said. This is an issue that people really struggle with, and this is something that I know very little about. So I'm so grateful that you shared this with us. Gave us some insights into BMI. I guess because I am a white man, I don't have an excuse for being overweight. I can't say that it is. That's just the amount of alcohol that I drink. But outside of that, yes,
Well, that's just the thing, though. Even if the original calculation was made using an average of the white male body, that white male body is not an accurate representation of a white male body now.
Yeah, and
it's not even accurate to that anymore.
Right.
It's insane. And yet we use it. We follow this thing like it's goddamn Bible to tell us whether or not we are healthy, unhealthy, overweight, or morbidly obese.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I mean, that white male body did not factor in the amount of alcohol that I would have to consume to get through the Trump years. So it's just actively unfair.
It is.
Then on that note,
this has been Reunited States. Thank you guys so much for listening. Follow us on Instagram at Reunited States Pod. We are available wherever you guys get podcasts. From Los Angeles, California, my name is Tyler Eric.
And from Manchester, New Hampshire, my name is Jesse Saywell.
And this has been Reunited States.
When the whole world has got you down, and there's no one else around, turn that frown right upside down and turn on the power. Oh, Reunited States. Reunited States. Civil discourse, ain't it great? Tyler and Jesse, oh, they can't.